Material Science and Structures Timber lecture. Right, this is what the contents of the presentation is. An introduction into timber, its structure, its anisotropic behaviour, moisture properties, conversion and seasoning, and different timber products, and finally, the degradation of the material. Right, timber is a very old construction material since the earliest of times. Up to 60% of timber produced is used in construction, which is quite a lot considering how much timber is made every year. The Earth's forest acts as a carbon sink, which means that it absorbs carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and breathes out oxygen. It's actually another way of reducing carbon in the atmosphere. It's also a renewable resource, meaning that trees, we can chop it down and it will grow. However, because it doesn't grow at a very quick rate, its consumption is continuously decreasing due to environmental reasons. Here are some illustrations of the use of timber. A lot of timber frame, example in roofs. Here we have a footbridge. In the docks. It's also used in foundations. And in other concrete technology. Not to mention, in the house, a lot of the furniture is actually made from timber. So all in all, it's a very, very important material. Let's talk about the structure of timber. Wood can be divided into two classes, hardwoods and softwoods. They're referred to by their cell structure, not its physical hardness. Now, it's possible to further differentiate between early wood, which is very porous, and late wood, which is more dense. So a bit more about the structure of timber. Here we can see late wood is dense on the right hand side, and early wood is very porous on the left. Timber is unique because it exhibits anisotropic behaviour, which means that depending on how you cut it, the timber from the same material will have different properties. It is anisotropic in 3 dimensions: longitudinally, radially, and circumferentially. And timber is also easier to split along the grain. So the properties such as stiffness, compressive strength, and tensile strength depends on the direction that we cut the timber, whether it's parallel or perpendicular to the grain. Now, as also shown on the table, beech timber is the densest at 750 kilograms per meter cubed, and balsa timber is the least dense. So as we've said, it has properties in different directions, and this is an illustration. Longitudinally means it's cut from the top to the bottom. Radially means it's from the centre to the outer bark. So there we can see radially, it's from the centre to the outer bark, and circumferentially or tangential, it's the same thing, it is round the circumference of the tree. Okay, so this is the 3 different definitions. A bit more about the anisotropy. Here we have a table of the properties of different types of timber. If we look at balsa and beech, we can see what the difference is in Young's modulus, just depending on how we cut the timber. Furthermore, you can also look at whitewood, which again has such a vast difference in its Young's modulus. So we can see that depending how we cut the timber can radically affect its properties. Now a bit about the moisture movements. When the tree is growing, the vessel cells are full of moisture. The vessel cells transport water up the tree during the growing season each year. It provides strength and stiffness to the timber. It does not move, in other words shrink or swell, when full of sap, and is made of cellulose. Therefore, when we cut the timber, the vessel cells are cut through and the cut end is exposed to the atmosphere. Therefore, during seasoning, which is a type of drying process, all the moisture content falls to about 28%. With further drying, the vessel walls, cellulose, begin to dry out and they shrink. Thus it is the drying out of the vessel cells walls which causes the moisture movement. Because the vessel cell walls are arranged in rings, the moisture movement will be greatest in the tangential or circumferential direction, which is figure 4. So some other common terms for timber movement caused by drying are cupping, diamonding and twist. And here we have figure 4 showing the moisture movement. So we've touched upon drying of timber. When the timber is cut, we need to cut it into planks, and then we need to dry it out. And this is how it's done. How do we get the wood or timber? First of all, conversion. This is the process of cutting tree trunks into planks before seasoning. And there are many different techniques used, as we shall see later. Seasoning is the process of removing water from the timber, and it's also a process of allowing timber to dry out to a moisture level similar to its intended surroundings. So let's start off with conversion. Here is where we saw up the timber as illustrated there. Staying with conversion, another illustration of how the timber is processed before it's left to dry. Now to seasoning. The primary aim of seasoning is to render the timber as dimensionally stable as possible. Seasoning removes most, but not all, of the moisture from the timber. Two different methods are used: air seasoning, which is air drying, and kiln seasoning, which is placing in a hot chamber. First of all, let's look at air drying. A lot of the water is concentrated in the centre, and then what happens is, as we cut through the timber and it's exposed to the atmosphere, the timber then moves out of the centre outwards, as shown by the arrow. So it's going from moist to dry there, and that is essentially the movement of moisture. Therefore, air drying of timber in the UK can reduce moisture levels, but only down to about 20%. Kiln seasoning that placing in the oven reduces moisture content to as low as 10%. Now about different timber products. There are many of them: plywood, laminated timber, blockboard, engineering timber, particle board, fibre board, wood wool slabs, shingles, compressed straw bales, thatch, and medium density fibres, known as MDF. Examples of engineered timber products are I-beam and plywood, and also MDF. Plywood is one of the most commonly types used, and as we can see, it's like different layers of wood in different directions that are put together, and it gives quite a strong product at the end. We also get glued laminated sections, and we can make different shapes, and also the material can be quite strong. Finally, let's talk about the decay of timber. There are 6 different types of degradation mechanisms: biological, chemical, photochemical, thermal, fire, and mechanical. The most important of these in the UK is biological degradation, which can occur in 2 different ways: fungal attack and insect attack. First of all, fungal attack. Now, most forms of decay and sap stain in timber are caused by fungi that feed either on the cell wall tissue or cell contents of woody plants. For wood rotting fungi to grow, they require oxygen, moisture, and a supply of food. Before rotting fungi can grow, timber must have a moisture content of at least 20%. So we must try to keep the moisture content below that level. That's fungal attack. With insect attack, it tends to be less serious than fungal attack, and the main cause of insect attack in the UK comes from beetles. Now, the way it works is that they lay their eggs on the timber, and during their larval stage, the wood-boring beetles typically bore through timber for a period of 2 years. And the beetles eat through the organic material, causing loss of mechanical strength because the density is actually reducing. And this is